Okay. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to the meeting of the Downtown Kiwanis Club. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Our flag is in the back on the mantle.
We're up there.
Oh, what? Okay, or there. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, today the speakers are us. This is the third in our continuing series of the club, declining membership, and the future of the club, and what steps we need to take either to ensure that the club stays active and vital, or if we don't have good options for that, what steps we would need to take to make sure that the club is disbanded in a way that we have say so in our assets, especially the foundation, and how we would help continue some of the programs that have been very important to us. So I think what we're going to do is Tom Smith did a very nice sort of summary of the club and things that would need to be done either to keep going, or if we choose, if we don't find those viable options, what would need to do to prepare, and the timeline for that, which unfortunately is approaching fairly quickly. So I'm going to ask Tom to come up. You each have the handout on the table that Tom created. I'm going to try to take some notes.
I'm only going to be here for 2 minutes, and Meg is going to run the meeting, but I wasn't here in the first two discussions apparently you had, because I've been out of town.
We have Zoom, you know.
Huh?
We do have Zoom.
Monday morning golf, unfortunately. But I was thinking that which you probably all are fully aware of, that you know, I would prefer to survive the club in some fashion or other. And I'm only here 5 or 6 months a year. And so that's part of the problem, obviously. Others are around all year long, but maybe they're not attending like today. So I just wanted to sort of, for my own thought process, break it down into what are our options: survive, merge, or close. And I understand there was even a meeting this morning of people talking about, who knows, maybe mergers, but who knows? We can talk about that. But I want, just so you see, the top half, that's what we've got. And in a way, when you look at it, we're a small club now, 45 members plus, and all of these committees, half of which I don't know are functioning anymore. And I used to be involved in more of it. And so who knows whether we need all these committees? Maybe we can simplify our structure and do something. That's one way to survive. We need leaders, however, as Bengt said. And so the questions under survival at the bottom half are talking about how do we change our structure, perhaps to function as a club without the same arrangement of leaders, without speakers, if that's an issue, with speakers, without Zoom. We all are belong to other clubs. So what are other clubs facing? Are we different? Are we butting our heads against the wall unnecessarily? Or is there a way to do it? One of the ways might be, if you read the paper this morning, either online or in the flesh, the Rotary Club West, Madison, it's got this huge project that it runs. Rotary Club Madison merged with another club recently, or is merging right now. So they are having the same problems, but they've got a major focus and they're surviving with that focus. Should we have 1 or 2 foci instead of 10 or 12? Should we just be a scholarship program and really enlarge the number of scholarships we do every year and focus on that? things like that. And if we do focus on member recruitment, maybe Terry's got some good ideas again about member recruitment for this club. Merging. So we can talk about merging. It's good that we've got two guys here from Madison West. And then closure. I'm asked all the time, what did the Racine Club do when it closed? And I'm not answering that until we go through the other options first. So that's it.
I think he wants you to read the rest.
Is there a question, Jim? Okay.
I was surprised when we done what we did.
He wanted you to read the whole thing to
No, I
us.
don't believe in repeating what you could read in your own eyes.
Okay,
I would,
Cool.
I don't know whether the Miracle League is a committee or not, but that should be somewhere.
I think it should be under specific activities. It is under specific activities.
It's not a committee. And
Oh, I see.
there are about four of us that are active in it right now.
Right. It's one of our bigger, most active projects, I would say.
Very active.
Okay, so the format that we are sort of envisioning from here on in is an opportunity for people who might have ideas, and I definitely focusing on what ideas do we have to make the club viable. And just let you know, I think everyone knows that Dick and Richard, our treasurer and secretary, have 5-year terms. Their terms will be up in October, end of September 2024. Those are the two big jobs. And I know we've talked about maybe dividing them up, doing a divide and conquer and breaking it down into smaller pieces. However, it also doesn't solve the fact that I think when I was asked to be president-elect, I was the only one who, I don't think I was the first call, but maybe I was. Tom would know. But last year when we tried to get a president-elect, nobody would take it up. So Tom Broad has agreed to have his name on the list, but the agreement was that he really could not be that active in it. And so it really has fallen to Kevin as past president, Dick and Richard and myself to keep things moving forward. In theory, I'm not president at the end of September. So if I don't stay on in some way, we'll not have a president or a vice president. I think when we've tried to figure out how to keep the club going, at least for 2 years, at about this time last year, the idea would be that I would stay as president, and I don't know, Tom or someone else would be president-elect. And my problem is I agreed with my employer that I would have 1 year where I made sure that I, as much as I could with my travel schedule, be here on Mondays. And now stretching it into 2 years, I haven't broached that subject yet. So we have a lot of issues. So I think what I'd like to do, I know Terry has some ideas, and I think there are other people that have ideas. And as I say, probably right now, focusing on what we can do to remain viable. I think Tom did a pretty nice summary of things that would need to be done if we could not figure out how to keep the club viable. And I know the foundation, who really does not want the club to fold, has at the last meeting agreed on what some steps to take to prepare if that would be the way this goes, and are starting to look at what kind of prospectus we would want if we were turning over bits and pieces of the foundation assets to other foundations, and get a straw dog as far as how we would write it to maintain to support the activities we would like supported. This is obviously being done very reluctantly because we would all prefer that the foundation remain with the club, but we have to be realists because as Tom said, there are some timelines, and in order to make sure if the club is not going to be sustainable, we need to start some pretty good actions by the end of this fiscal year, the end of September, to make sure that we have a controlled departure at the end of the following fiscal year. So Terry, I'm going to ask you to come up. I'm going to try to take notes, though note taking isn't my forte. And after Terry's done, I would invite anyone else to come up, so I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
Well, I'm a bit of an in and outer, and I recognize that. So maybe what I'm going to say, you take with a grain of salt. Although, I've been in Kiwanis. I helped charter a club in Fairfield, Iowa in 1965. I moved to Madison in 66. Chuck Webster brought me into this club. I was a president back in the 70s. My heart is with Kiwanis. I've been asked by my kids, I've been asked by my wife, and I said, it's a great organization. We built up a reasonably strong foundation, so we should be able to perpetually go on into the future with this organization. So having that as a background and spending most of my time in Florida, I've had some time to reflect on what could we do? What could this club do to move forward in a very positive way in the community? And, I spent 45 years here in town. I was very active throughout the community. So I have a little bit of a feel for what's going on. On the other hand, Madison moves fast, moves swiftly. It always has. So we have to keep pace. So I'm going to give you a pretty wild idea today. And my employees would tell you that old man Shockley has a lot of ideas, most of which we can improve upon. But I do have a lot of wild ideas, and some of them have stuck in the organizations that I've been privileged to be with. And so I'm going to give you a wild idea today. But I think it's an idea that I have played off of a couple of people who know nothing about our issues here. They know nothing about, one of them knows a little bit about our dwindling membership, but they don't know anything about anything else. They don't have any idea what we have in the foundation. So I gave them my wild idea. And they said, well, that's worth bringing in front of your group because it's a pretty solid idea. So here it goes. The first part of the wild idea is we have 2 meetings a month. The first meeting would be on the first Monday of the month. The second meeting would be on the third Monday of the month. And I'll kind of come back to that in a minute. And why just 2? And what are you going to do with 2 meetings? The first meeting of the month would be a planning session where we would get together just like we have here today, only we would work toward a project. And we would plan it out and discuss how we're going to do it. The second meeting of the month, being the third Monday of the month, would be the event that we would sponsor and somehow host either here or on location. And and we would involve our foundation in that we would be making a grant as well. So that's the titillation of where the thing gets going with 2 meetings a month. So you say, well, what are we going to do with this meeting that happens on the 3rd Monday of the month? That's the big event day. That's the day where we have, prior to that event, we have, with committee, we have decided how we're going to run it, how we're going to do it, where it's going to be, and how big it's going to be, and what kind of a contribution we're going to make at the end of the day. And so we don't have a speaker on the first meeting of the month. It's a planning session where we all sit shoulder to shoulder and we figure out how we're going to do these things. I would give us some time. I would say that in order to develop this plan, we have to have probably the next month or two to develop it, and I'll get to that in a minute, to develop it, and then we could begin. So, you know, it's probably an early fall structure, the way I see it, but I think then we would have the blueprint of what's going to happen for the next 12 months. So here's a little taste of the blueprint. Now, these are just wild ideas. There's probably 12, 15 other better ideas, but these are some things that we could consider. And I'm not going to give you a lot of details on them because I just put them down as ideas for this event that takes place on the 3rd meeting of the month. Now, the 3rd meeting of the month could be here. It could also be on location. And the first one I would throw out is that, and these are not in any particular order. I just wrote them down based on my thinking. So they're not in any particular order, and they could be juxtapositioned in any way we wanted to do it. But one idea would be we have a farm luncheon or breakfast that we sponsor, and we utilize the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, where we have a deep, deep relationship with through this club, very deep. In fact, when I first started in this club, there were tons of really agricultural people involved. This farm luncheon would be with the help of the Department of Agriculture. We would search out a farmer in a particular area, county, community that's an outstanding farmer. And we would either host it at his place with a tent and a breakfast or a lunch, or we would have them here. One of the two, it's optional. And we would honor that farmer and talk about his success and why farming is important. And at the end of the presentation, we would offer a scholarship, $250, $500, to an FAA student, somebody that community had selected. The FAA chapter might have selected it in his area. So, for example, if we were going to do it in Stoughton, near Stoughton, we'd either go to that farm and have it be a breakfast or a lunch, and we would invite fellow neighbors and friends there, along with our club members, and we would talk to the FAA and ask them to single out one of their outstanding students, and we would offer a scholarship to that student in the name of that farmer. So that's one idea. That could be one of the meetings on the 3rd Monday of the month. Another one would be Madison's very active in the Clean Lakes organization. So perhaps we gather some prime movers in the Clean Lakes and we have an event for them. And we honor somebody who's been a pathfinder there. And perhaps there's a way we can make a contribution at the end of that celebration to that particular organization, whether it be a grant of $500, whether it be a scholarship in the name of one of the people who was a pathfinder there, that would be given in the name of Clean Lakes, And that's an organization that's pretty active. We could have every Eagle Scout that becomes an Eagle Scout has to do a community project. We could go to the Four Lakes Council. We could ask them, we could ask them to judge perhaps the best community project that they thought was possible. We could invite the Scout leaders, and we could honor that individual, have them talk about their community project. Mine, when I grew up in Rock Island, was the Mississippi River and some things that had to be done there in order to protect against flooding and all of that. So there's pretty good thinking by these Eagle Scouts. So then that Eagle Scout that we honor that day, along with all of the leaders from scouting community that would attend, would get a scholarship, $250, $300, $500 from our foundation. Now, when we have these events, the foundation would also, we would pay for our own meals, but the foundation would pick up the other meals. So if we invite 8 to 12 people for these special events on the third Monday of the month, foundation would pick up those luncheons. So there'd be no cost to mom and dad who come for the Eagle Scout. There'd be no cost to the leaders of the Scout organization. And we pick out, I'm just picking number 8 to 12. They would be here with us in the meeting, and we would celebrate. We'd have the room decorated correctly with Kiwanis, and we'd make a big deal out of it. The outstanding scholar on the women's volleyball team is just another possibility. So we go to the volleyball coach and we say, who is your number one scholar on this team? So it's this 6'8" gal from Ripon, Wisconsin, who is the best scholar on the team. So she comes along with a couple of teammates. One's 6'8", one's 6'6", one is 6'5". These are big women, and they're here along with their coaches and 8 or 9 or 10 other people, maybe parents, maybe friends and relatives, that all are here at the expense of our foundation. And we have a great luncheon and a great celebration, and we have something really exciting that day. Maybe we honor the first responder who has done something really special on this third Monday of that month. And again, in our planning sessions, we figured this out. We figured out who's going to be responsible for making sure the room is right that day, the tables are correct, that somebody else is going to make charge of making sure calls are made to be sure people are here. It's all taken care of by our foundation. Come, enjoy the day. And we have obviously some city officials here for the first responder that's done some heroic things perhaps. And that first responder gets a scholarship in his name or her name to something special, to the firefighters organization, to the police organization, whatever. What about Wisconsin singers? Now, these are just ideas that I came up with off the top of my head. You guys have got better ideas maybe than I do about who we can honor. But has there been any attention given to the Wisconsin singers? They're phenomenally talented. They're a great organization. And so we could have them here at a meeting on the third Monday of the month, and they could be celebrated for their great activities, and there could be a grant given to the Wisconsin singers from the Kiwanis Foundation of downtown Madison. What about the Emerson School Project, which we've been involved with for decades? Why not celebrate that? Why not have people from Emerson School? Why not have some students here? Why not have a few exhibits of some of the amazing things they've done and have that be on the third Monday of the month? Most of which would be taken care of by our foundation, but we'd orchestrate it. We'd have people in these committee meetings on the Mondays orchestrate it, make sure it was done correctly. So it's not all falling on the leader of the club. It's falling on all of us to be a part of that. and to take up some responsibility with respect to organizing it and getting it done. You say, well, we don't have very many men. Nobody wants to do anything. But if you give them a cause, if you give them something that's really exciting, and somebody says, well, I love those Wisconsin singers. Well, would you call the parents of several people? Would you do this? Would you do that? I think you'd get it. I think you'd get help. What about the Oakwood trails? You know, we built that trail years and years ago. Let's celebrate it. Let's do something with it. Let's have it be a program. Maybe it's at Oakwood. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's on the trail on a beautiful day, and we honor it. And we, by the way, as we do these things on the third Monday of the month, 2 meetings a month, we get the press out because we're giving a scholarship, we're giving a grant, we're giving money. The Kiwanis Club of Downtown Madison Foundation is doing some good things in the community. So we can interest the press to give us some news about it. What about following the football season, following the first semester, whatever? Who's the top scholar on the football team? So it's this lineman who's 6'8", 340 pounds, who happens to be the best scholar on the team. And he brings along a couple of his buddies from the line, and they're 6'7", 6'8", 300, 330 pounds, and they bring their parents. Wouldn't that be an exciting meeting? I mean, I think we would all, like this when you see these giants. And here's a scholar. Here's a guy with a 4-point that we're going to honor. And the coaches could be here. So they're all paid for by our foundation. And the meeting is well done. It's exciting. We have the room filled. And we have to determine just exactly what our capacity is here so we don't overbook, and we get a great turnout for that. What about a citizenship award? Is there somebody in our community that's done some amazing things? On the third Monday of the month, we would award a citizenship scholarship in the name of that person who has been outstanding and done some special things in the community with regard to citizenship. We would take a little research, but we got time to do that, and we find the right person. What about honoring a famous woman in business in Madison? I think that'd get some attention from the media, and in her name, we could offer a scholarship to a women's organization in town, to her special pet project, but it would all be done, and she could have fellow associates here. She could have other women in business here. I think it would make headlines, and I think it would be something that people could get excited about. What about the top medical award for somebody in our medical community that's invented a new way to save lives through heart transplant, do whatever? We've got amazing medical capabilities in this town. Surely there's somebody who we could honor and we could award a scholarship to. So those are just my own thoughts. 8 to 12 people, 8 to 10 people would be our guests. The grants would be anywhere from $250 to $500 that we would give out. That's about $6,000 a year, plus the meals expenses. The foundation's money, and this is a phenomenal what we have there, could be used to good things in the community. We would make every third Monday, 12 of them, really, really special. And I think Kiwanis would showcase itself to the community. I think we would get some amazing publicity, and I think we'd create a lot of excitement, and we'd probably get some other members because I think we're doing great things. So that's my wild idea. As I tell you, my employees would say, oh man, Shockley has a lot of ideas, most of which we can improve upon. So I leave you with that, but I think these are exciting ways to get things done.
Terry, I have one question. First of all, thank you for the time you put in this, because I think it's great to have such a concept my brain goes from the first Monday of the month to the third Monday of the month. We're gonna get all this planned.
Well,
Do we need to stagger?
I think between now and when we would start this plan, when we start going to 2 meetings a month, whenever that is, if that's in September or whenever it is, that's when we do a lot of this planning that this group here sorts it out and says, well, I Shockley brought up this business about the medical person, but what about this? So we plan that out and we say, well, we've got somebody in our organization that's got some real knowledge about that. Let's get them in. So we start the planning early. So it's not a case where we have 2 weeks to get it done. We've done a lot of pre-thought to these 12 meetings. And so anyway, that's a partial answer. It's probably more complicated than that, but that's part of
It's
it.
just, for me, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's not doing. Does anyone else have
Any questions about it? Okay, there it is.
Participants on Zoom are saying they can't hear people from the field.
They can't hear me?
They hear you can't hear people.
No, you can't hear the questions. That's right.
So I think just for you,
Let me put new batteries in there.
it's dead.
It's dead. So, you can keep talking, because we could hear you. There we go.
Now cozy up to,
It's gonna be heard on Zoom.
yeah, okay. So who else, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Or
Let me give a quick update. Last week, Abe and I talked about the ARMS program and the foundation, as it's our one restricted activity in the foundation. And at our last board meeting, I said I would talk to the foundation, the UW Foundation, about getting them aware of where the club is in its discussions. So last week, Abe said he's going to handle that and go talk to individuals within the foundation at UW who are intermediaries between our foundation and actually the unit that there we go. Is that working? There we go. Okay, I have that little circle thing. So Abe asked for documents on the ARMS origin from way back when Lyle Hill and Bob Heidemann and Carol Heidemann envisioned putting some money into the ARMS program and setting up this restricted fund, which is roughly, and Abe isn't here, I think it's like 300,000, 400,000.
I think that one's smaller. I think
Ken, do you remember? It's in that size because we give 11,000 plus every year off of that size. So 4% of 300,000 is $12,000. So I'm getting to the point of Abe got documents from Dolly and I that we collected way back in the 70s when the ARMS program started with our club. And Abe will take them to the UW Foundation in his discussions about potentially transferring that pot of money to the UW Foundation so that the downtown Kiwanis ARMS support will continue should the club fold.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big lift off of the foundation, but that still leaves $1.4 million or $1.5 million that's unrestricted that we have to account for if the club was to close. Any questions on that?
I just want to add, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 2 other restricted funds within the foundation. So though both of them smaller than that one. I also got an email from Dolly right before the meeting. They're driving back from up north. She couldn't make it. She said, I just want to share thoughts. I've tried for years to recruit more members and it hasn't worked. The only thing that might be worth trying is changing the meeting format and timing and really trying something different. So a little bit in the vein of what Terry was saying. One example, there are times I think inviting a friend for a specific, she thinks about inviting a friend for a specific program, but it would cost her $40 for both lunches. If the meal was not the focus and it was more informal, it would be easier, might be easier to bring new members in. So.
And remind people that for prospective members, there's like either 2 or 3 meals at no charge.
Yeah, and Dick just reminded us that for prospective members, so I guess someone other than a spouse or